on. Okay, so he starts off with with competitive markets, and a competitive market is a market where there are many buyers and sellers. Think thousands of buyers and sellers. So it's a market with thousands of buyers and sellers. So if one seller leaves or one buyer leaves, they have no impact. All right. So if price is changed in a competitive market and price goes up, no one's going to buy from that person because they have 999 people with lower prices. They can't lower the price because the market's so competitive. If you lower the price, you won't make money. Okay. So competitive market, thousands of buyers and sellers. So each one has little impact on the market. Now, there's two others he mentions. Monopoly. Monopoly is a single. So it's one company in the market. Think BG&E. Think cable TV. Okay? Just one in the market. So cable TV, BG&E. And then he also mentions oligopolies, which is 2 to 10 companies. So you have monopoly, one company, BG&E, and cable as examples. Oligopoly, 2 to 10. Like cereal companies are like that. Even though there's thousands of cereals, they're all owned by like 3 or 4 companies. And then you have competitive market, thousands and thousands. All right? All right. Then he talks about quantity demanded. The quantity demanded is the amount of a good, that buyers are willing and able to purchase. The amount of a good that buyers are willing and able to purchase. He then talks about the law of demand. The law of demand is price up, quantity demanded down. Price up, quantity demanded down. Price down, quantity demanded up. Okay. And let me see, could I find an example of quantity demanded would be in panel C. No, not panel C, sorry. These are all demand shifts. Let me see if I scroll up here and get you an example. Okay. And right here, where supply is shifting left, I am moving up the demand curve. So that is a change in quantity demanded. Okay. And we'll get back to that. All right. Then he talks about substitutes. Substitutes are two goods for which an increase in the price of one leads to an increase in the demand for the other. Two goods for which an increase in the price of one leads to an increase in the demand for another. So if the price, and I try to use like Coke and Pepsi, if the price of Coke goes up, people buy less Coke, so the demand of Pepsi goes up. So they both go in the same direction. In that example, if the price of Coke goes up, and this is the Pepsi market, we're going to see panel A. The demand for Coke shifts right and goes up like that. Now, complements have an inverse relationship. There are two goods for which an increase in the price of one leads to a decrease in the demand of another. Two goods for which an increase in the price of one leads to a decrease in the demand of another. Two goods for which an increase in the price of one leads to a decrease in the demand for other. For complements, I think of hot dogs and hot dog buns. So an increase in the price of hot dogs, people buy less hot dogs and therefore demand less hot dog buns. And that would be, I guess, panel B, if you look up top, would be panel B, a leftward demand shift. You see demand going left, okay? And that would be hot dog buns, okay? And there you could see quantity supplied going down, just sliding down the axis. All right. Now I'm going to talk about taste and expectations in a second when I go through the 5 shifters. He also said, ceteris paribus, that's everything else stays the same. So what I'm saying is income doubles in the United States, demand shifts right because everything else stays the same. Okay? Now, ceteris paribus will never be the answer, but sometimes it's in the question, so I want you to know what it is. All right, shifters of demand. Timer. T as in taste. Okay? Taste and preference would be like things that are in style, things that go out of style. Health, like if the United States say bananas are unhealthy, the demand for bananas are going to go down. Okay? Income. Now, remember, income is divided into 2 types of goods, normal and inferior. For a normal good, income up, demand up. Income down, demand down. So income, normal good, income up, demand up. Income down, demand down. An inferior good, inverse relation, income up, demand down. Now, if they don't say anything, we're going to assume it's a normal good. Okay? So timer, taste, income, market size. Expectations, which is based on future pricing. I think they have a question on the practice where there's a $3,000 rebate for a Ford. Now, a rebate is like a $3,000 discount for a Ford Mustang a month from now. Well, people aren't going to buy Fords now. They're going to wait a month. That's expectation. Demand for Ford now decreases. And then related goods, substitutes, and complements, which we talked about previously. So taste, income, market size, expectations, related goods. Okay. Quantity supplied. The amount of a good that sellers are willing and able to sell. The amount of a good that sellers are willing and able to sell. Law of supply, price up, quantity supply up. Price down, quantity supply down. And why is that? When price goes up, everything else being the same, people make more money, they want to supply more. Price goes down, producers make less money, they want to sell less. All right. I'm going to go to the shifters in the supply curve, which is rat nest. So the R is resources. Let me give you some examples of resources. Inputs, wages, production cost, okay? Anything that it takes to make a product. But a lot of times they use the word input, wages, production costs. Those are all inputs. Alternative production. Do I want to make golf balls or jackets? I'm going to make the one that's most profitable. Technology. So I got resources, which are inputs, wages, production costs. Alternative production, technology, number of sellers. All right. The more sellers, supply is going to shift right. Now, this is expectations for profit. Subsidy, which is like an incentive. Okay. And then taxes. And I think we did an example with taxes today. So you got resources, inputs, wages, production costs are examples, alternative production, technology, number of sellers, expectations, subsidies, and taxes. All right. Now, here's one of the things. Like these graphs are going to be on your quiz. You're not going to really have to draw graphs. You can just refer to these. So equilibrium here is PE, QE. I can do the red, but okay. Now that's the equilibrium. What does that mean? At that point, quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. So at the equilibrium price, quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. Okay. So maybe I should just do one here. Let's see if I draw a graph. All right. So there's 3 steps. Looking at a shifter. First would be, this doesn't really want to draw. I draw the original supply and demand curve. And hold it, maybe I could get this. Okay, hopefully you could see the supply and demand curve here. All right, that would be the first thing. Then the next step is, let's see, say it was income doubling in the United States. All right, hot weather increases demand for ice cream. So hot weather would be taste and preference. All right. So you're going to go, is it a demand shifter or a supply? It's a demand shifter. And then you're going to shift demand to the right. All right. Now I'm going to look and see. Let's see, does this work? Price went up, and I can't draw the arrow here. There should be an arrow showing price goes up, quantity increases. There should be an arrow there, and then an arrow up there which shows the shifter. All right. So the 3 steps is 1, the original equilibrium that we started here. 2, hot weather. What is that going to do for ice cream? All right. That's a demand issue, taste and preference. All right. It's going to shift demand to the right. And then you have the new equilibrium, price and quantity. All right. Now I want to go back. All right. Then I'm going to go here again just to quickly, like it says, shifts in the curves versus movement along the line. If you look where demand shifts, that's a change in demand, a shift in demand. Okay. That is a change in demand or a shift in demand. When I go from A here to B, I'm sliding up the supply curve. That's an increase in quantity supply. So an increase in demand, an increase in quantity supplied. In panel B, that would be 1 million people leave the United States. Market size decreases, demand decreases, shift to the left. Now I'm going from from there, A to B here, and that's a decrease in quantity supply. Okay? All right. I should do one supply just can I get it down to supply? Let me see, can I get that down? All right. And then, all right, I need to erase. Need to do a couple of things here. Here's your erase. And then, here's your erase. All right. If you look at the panel on the left, that would be increase in technology. Supply shifts right because the curve shifts, increase in supply. But when I go from P to P prime, it's an increase in quantity demanded. Okay. All right. That's basically the chapter. What I'd like to do is, let me get the chat box up here. Where is the chat box? And you could ask me a question on the practice quiz or anything in the chapter, and I'll be glad to answer them for you. So if you have a question on the practice quiz, you could just type it in and we'll look at it. Otherwise, just type in your question. Number 7. When supply and demand both increase, equilibrium will. Okay. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use graphs already drawn for me. All right. So I'm going to scroll up here. When demand increases, right, I got price up, quantity up. We'll scroll down. When supply increases, which is the panel to the left, I got price down, quantity up. So price is indeterminate, but I know quantity is going to increase. So the answer would be price may increase, decrease, or remain unchanged. Mason, did that make sense to you? Tucker, I think you asked too. Did that make sense to you? Okay. Notice, and I think this is a big advantage, you don't have to waste time graphing. These graphs are made for you already. Okay. And that's a double shifter. All right. So you got to use both graphs. Any other questions people would want? Number 2. All right, Brody, let me just scroll up. Oh, is that the competitive markets? Brody, I didn't like the way that was worded, to be honest with you. Why I put it on the practice quiz and not the actual quiz. If a seller in a competitive market, all right, so competitive market, Brody, has thousands and thousands of sellers. So if they choose to charge more, so say everyone in the school is selling ice cream for $1 a gallon, and you charge $2 a gallon. No one's going to buy from you because they could buy from everyone else. So buyers will make purchases with other sellers. Does that make sense? All right. Now, thinking of that question, I would look out, maybe they'll ask something about monopolies. Again, just remember, monopolies are one company and monopoly like BG&E or cable. Or they could ask about oligopolies, 2 to 10 companies. I don't think they'll ask about selling and stuff like that, but more of how many firms. Okay. Any other questions you guys would like to ask? All right, 3 and 5. Let me go. Let's see which one we get to first. All right, 5. A movement upward and to the left along a demand curve is, all right, I'm going to scroll down here. All right. I'm going to look at the graph on the right. If I go up and to the left on the demand curve, I have a decrease in quantity demanded, right? I started at PE and I went to PE prime. So that's a decrease in quantity demanded. Okay. I don't know who asked that question, but does that make sense to you now? Okay. Now someone wanted number 3. I think that was Tucker who wanted number 3. Let's see, can I scroll up to number 3? Okay. Ford Motor Company. All right. So first, what is a rebate? A rebate is like $3,000 off. It's like a coupon. So Ford Motor Company announces that next month it'll offer a $3,000 rebate. So that means cars are going to be $3,000 cheaper next month. As a result of this information, so if cars are going to be cheaper next month, people aren't going to buy cars next month. So the demand, people are going to buy cars next month, not now, because it's going to be $3,000 cheaper next month. So demand for cars will decrease now and shift left. Tucker, does that make sense to you? Okay. Stephen, they're going to decrease because people who would normally buy a car like today, they're going to wait for a month, because why spend the money now when they could get 3,000 off later? Did that make sense to you? Okay. And that's expectations for demand. Any other? If you look at question 4, they love asking questions like that. So like, they're not going to ask, let me just say this. In question 4, it's about price. So normal and inferior goods cannot be the answer because they're about income. Okay. Giffen goods we didn't even learn about. So that's definitely not. All right. Now, you could expect maybe the same questions about complements, which would be, suppose that a decrease in the price of good X results in more units of good Y. That would be a complement. So think about it that way. Okay. Number 9. Okay. Which of the following is an increase in quantity demanded? All right. This is going to be the panel to the left. Okay. If you look, let me see, can I get the marker going here? Okay. Start here, David, at PE. All right. And then I slide down the curve here. So 2 things happened here: increase in supply and an increase in quantity demanded. Well, I'm trying to get to number 9 but they're only asking you for an increase in quantity demanded. And that comes because I slid down from A to B. Does that make sense? All right. There is going to be 2 of those questions like that on your test. So you really got to know those graphs. Yeah. For expectations for supply, it would be, if companies can make more money next month, what would happen to the supply of cars today? Well, they're going to supply less today because they can make more money in the future. Okay. Alternative production would be, can I make, I can make golf balls or golf clubs. Golf clubs are twice as profitable. So the supply of golf clubs will increase because I'm going to make golf clubs and not golf balls. Okay. Great questions. Any other questions on anything anyone has? An increase, Mason, of a subsidy will shift supply right. A decrease will shift it left. Because the subsidy, so say like we want farmers to grow more corn, so we give them $5 a barrel in corn. That's going to shift supply right. However, if we take that subsidy away and we go from $5 to zero, farmers are going to supply less corn now because they don't have that incentive. Did that make sense? And taxes are the opposite. If we increase taxes, supply is always going to shift left. But if we decrease taxes, companies are going to make more money, so supply will shift right. Yeah, if they took them away, Stephen, or decreased them. Any other questions? All right. I will be in my room at 7:45. I'm also off period one, and I'll be in the MRC if anyone wants to go over and have any review. Okay? Otherwise, thank you for joining. Have a great night.